Good morning and welcome to the Prado Museum. We're here a couple minutes before opening to the public for our weekly sessions in English. Thank you so much to the American Friends of the Prado Museum for making sessions like this possible, to our donors. Take a minute to check us out, as well as our sister organization, Fundación Amigos del Museo del Prado. I'm excited to be with you here today to talk about this work of art. Here we have a winter landscape by Aureliano de Beruete. This is a Madrileño painter, someone from Madrid, and the subjects of his work are always really centered around the landscapes in and around this city, across Europe and across Spain. This work of art, the kind of center of this subject is the Manzanares River, which has a long and important history really connected to Madrid and the soul of Madrid. Madrid was founded as a fortress in the 9th century, right on the banks of the Manzanares River by Emir Mohammed I. It was an effort to have a center of the caliphate that was strategically placed along the river in order to have access to water, but additionally just south of the Guadarrama mountain range and strategically placed among other important cities in Spain, including Zaragoza, Toledo, Segovia, and Mérida. This river is also important in the history of Spanish artists. We have artists like Francisco Goya, who included the Manzanares River in many of their paintings. His home, actually, Quinto de Sordo, was right on the banks of this river as well. This is where he painted his famous black paintings that we also have here in the Prado collection. But here we are today to talk about de Beruete's interpretation of this river. He paints the Manzanares River many times throughout his career. And this painting is actually coming from the end of his life and career, when his style is becoming a lot more loose with these broad gestural brushstrokes. I want to think about for a second that we're looking at a winter landscape here in Madrid, and he does an amazing job of capturing what winter feels like in this city. So we've got this strong light coming from the right side of the composition. We see these bare poplar trees illuminated in this bright white light. We can even see down on the ground these long purple shadows, right, of these trees. And it tells us a lot about the quality of the light in the winter time. We know that this is sort of late in the day as the sun is coming down across the city. It also tells us a little bit about the development of the city today. If you go along the banks of the Manzanares River in Madrid, you'll see buildings built up. This was a time a bit more wild. I also like looking at up here in the top of the painting, this section where the sky meets the tips of these trees. He's using these tiny little movements of the brushstroke. When you get close, they look extremely chaotic, but as you pull back away from the image, you can see that they really give you a sense of the little tiny movements that happen at the tips of the branches and as those parts of the composition connect. When you compare it to the brushstrokes in the bottom of the painting, where the river is, we see these long, kind of flowing brushstrokes, which give us a sense of the movement of that water, the green being reflected down, and that flowing as the wind kind of ripples the water with the winter wind. So we see him capturing winter here in Madrid on the Manzanares River, and I want to compare it for a second to another one of his paintings, painted just a year earlier in 1910 on the same river, but a different time of year. Here we see him capturing the Manzanares River in autumn. So again, he's using these sort of long gestural brushstrokes, thinking about the length of those brushstrokes in order to give us senses of movement, but also really thinking about reflection, those unique colors that we see in autumn in Madrid. Looking at the top over here, we have these layers of paint, these brushstrokes carving out with a spatula to give us all the sense of the movement of these leaves, the unique colors, and then how they flow in this beautiful river in the bottom here. So this is an artist who took time to study and re-study these same landscapes over and over again in order to understand them better. But in the end of his life, he definitely was using this sort of gestural style, as well as these really pure colors, perhaps directly from the tube, in order to create these bright, luminescent compositions. Returning back to our winter landscape for a second to tell you a little bit more about him and his life. He was originally from Madrid. He had his doctorate in law, but then after that he decided to study art. So he went to the School of Fine Arts here in Madrid, where he learned to be a landscape painter and spent a lot of his life traveling around practicing painting, but also working as an art collector. He collected quite a lot of artwork, and through his travels and those connections with artists, he met some famous folks along the way. Claude Monet was one of his direct contacts. I think looking at the styles here, we can definitely see a connection in terms of style. But he also had a really close relationship with Joaquin Sorolla. We have here in the Prado collection, not here in this room, unfortunately, a portrait of de Beruete that was painted by Sorolla. Actually, in the end of his life, de Beruete kind of died suddenly, and Joaquin Sorolla actually hosted a retrospective of his work in Sorolla's studio in Valencia in order to kind of honor him as well. Another couple cool facts about de Beruete is he was a copyist here in the Prado Museum during his studies. So after studying fine arts, he spent time here in this museum studying some of our masterworks with a lot of closeness in order to develop his skill. And his son, who has the same name, was the first non-artist director of the Prado Museum. So his connection to art and the art world, particularly here in Madrid, was quite strong. Thank you so much for joining us today in the Prado Museum for these weekly sessions in English. We look forward to seeing you next week.